How important is it that we find and get Osama bin Laden?
Well, there are people out there searching for him every day. He and his lieutenant, Zawahiri, are obviously symbolically important, and they're important to the movement as symbols and as rallying points. I do think that it's easy to become too focused on a single individual when really what has hurt al-Qaeda, and al-Qaeda has been hurt, what has hurt al-Qaeda is taking out that whole rung of their, I will call them their field generals. People like Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, like Abu Zubaydah, like Ramzi Binalshibh. These were the people who were really doing the plotting, the planning, the facilitating, really carrying out the plots. And by breaking up that structure, I think we've really weakened al-Qaeda. It's not the organization that it was on September 10th, and that's very good news. I also think that from the point of view of the image, if you will, of al-Qaeda, it's taken a beating. And when I hear Osama bin Laden commenting on climate change, I think something's a little strange in this organization. So we have to be vigilant. We have to keep pursuing it. I'll say tonight that one of the challenges is that we have to be right 100% of the time, and they have to be right once. And that's an unfair fight. And it means that you can never rest. I can tell you that for those of us who experienced September 11th from positions of authority, every day after that was September 12th. And that's the way you have to think about it, because they want desperately to succeed again, and the odds are they will.
Dealing with airline security, of course, we had the incident before Christmas. And, in dealing with foreign governments, how easy is it to get them to go along with boosting security and keeping these people off the planes, keeping that material off?
Well, we've made a lot of progress, actually, with most countries in the world on improving airline security. Now, sometimes there are tussles and differences about exchange of passenger information and whether or not it ought to be kept confidential and so forth. But for the most part, I think it works reasonably well. And by the way, Christmas plots are not at all unheard of. I think there were 4 or 5 in the period after 9/11 before we left office, because al-Qaeda would like very much to hurt us on our big religious holiday. That would be symbolically so important. So I'm not at all surprised that this happened on Christmas. I suspect that if the pieces had been put together and that the Europeans had been asked to keep that guy off the plane, they would have done it. I don't have any doubt that they would have done it. And so it wasn't the lack of cooperation that was the problem. Now, to be sure, somebody might have noticed that he was carrying no baggage and had a one-way ticket and paid cash. That should have been a red flag someplace. But again, I don't think it was the absence of cooperation that was the problem. I think we have reasonably good cooperation. We need to work harder to, through technology, to unify the systems, airline systems worldwide. It's a funny thing. If I fly from Singapore to Beijing to San Francisco, that airline can pull up my information in any of those cities. Why shouldn't we be able to do that in the same networked way for airline security? So there's much work to do, but I don't think it really is fair to say that it's the absence of cooperation. I think people want to cooperate on this.
I think you have one more question.
Yes.
I think you have a book coming out pretty soon.
I do. Well, in the fall, I'm furiously writing the last pages as we speak. I decided to do my family memoir first. It is a book called Extraordinary Ordinary People, and it is really about my parents and my grandparents. I am very often asked, how did you become who you are? How did you do what you did? And I say, you had to know John and Angelina Rice. and you had to know their bedrock belief and faith in the power of education. You had to know that they were people who believed that there was no, while you might not be able to control your circumstances, you could control your response to your circumstances, and so there were no victims. And I've often said that they raised me somehow in the teeth of segregated Birmingham. I was born in 1954, and I was 10 years old before we could go into a restaurant in Birmingham or stay in a hotel. But somehow, even though I couldn't have a hamburger at Woolworths, they had me absolutely convinced that I could be president of the United States if I wanted to be. And I think it's an extraordinary story of my parents and the community in which I grew up, which was a community that produced incredibly successful kids. I'm by no means the only successful kid from Titusville, Birmingham, in Birmingham, Alabama. Most importantly, while it's a story about the segregated South and a black family in the segregated South, it's a very American story. It's one of those stories that fits into our great national belief that it doesn't matter where you came from, it matters where you're going. And I thought it was really important to tell that story. I will write the foreign policy memoir the last 8 years. But I think until you know that story, it's probably hard to have a context for me going forward. Thank you very much.